So again, I know this is a lot of really practical information, but I want to do some quick Q&A. Is that right, James Mark? And then we're going to do some discussion at the tables after that. So, Christina, what's up? Okay, question is, how do you do in the moment feedback between services? It's delicate, honestly. And it depends on if this is a make or break of, you know what I mean? So if it's like, this is not going, if I don't fix this, this is going to really be terrible in the next service as well. So some things that are just like, okay, you need a little more energy. I might just be like, hey, like, just give it a little more this next service, or something small like that, as opposed to like, hey, you're really dead. You know, the other thing is I have very strong relationship with these people that I don't necessarily have with everyone. So I straight up told Arden, I go, you look tired and bored. And I like raised Arden. I feel like I'm like, Arden is my worship child. And so that's so weird. So I have the authority to step in and say like, hey, like, come on, like, I know you have so much more than this, you know, and I can speak really straight to Arden or really straight to Jesse and pretty close to straight to Laura, though I don't have as much of that relational sways with her as I do with them. So a part of it is I gauge, where am I with this person? Somebody who's new, I'm not going to be as direct with. Somebody who's been around a long time, I'm going to be like, hey, that doesn't seem like it's working. Also, I am too direct to a fault. Like, when I first started working here, I had to work on being a lot nicer than I was, because I would be like, hey, that was bad. How are you going to fix it? And it's like, you know, like, you hate me, you know, or like, I'm a terrible person. And so I have to learn to work on my language, not like cussing, but I have to learn to work on my language. What we'll do is we'll say like, things that need to be fixed between services. So like, hey, this transition didn't really work, or something like that. Again, I'll try to ask questions. We do it's accidentally become a habit that we walk out off the stage into that back room and we're like, what just happened? Like, that was terrible, you know, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, we were awful. Or like, you know, like, how can we not have that happen again? Or like, that was the best thing ever. You know, it's like we accidentally go into an immediate debrief, which has not always been the case. But we will try to say like, hey, how, again, it's all asking questions. How did you feel in that? Did you feel like that went well? And if they're like, yeah, I'll be like, hey, can I share something with you? One thing I noticed was this. And again, it kind of opens the door, I think, a little bit. So yeah, it's a case by case. If something's bad, and there are some services literally that I have a mental note of. There was one service, like, I don't remember, a month or two ago, that literally everyone but one person I had a thought for on stage. So I was like, hey, so-and-so, can I talk to you really fast? Hey, I noticed this happened. What did you think? They're like, yeah, it's kind of bad. Okay, so let's just make sure we really clean that up. Hey, so-and-so, on this bridge, did you mean to play the 3 instead of the 1? Oh, yeah, I thought it would be cool, but it didn't really work or whatever. So I'm like, okay, yeah. Hey, you know, and I'll like kind of try to grab people in between. And so that's a lot of what it'll look like. I also don't do it in front of a bunch of people. So if something is really bad, I try to have the one-on-one conversation instead of like, you know, the whole band's there. I'm like, wow, James Mark, that was awful. And you're just like, you know, like, they all think I stink now. So that's another thing. But
I think it's also the question asking has been a product of a couple things. I'm not as direct as Owen is in general in my communication. And I also, I'm a processor, and so it's been a growth process for me through being a worship pastor to be able to, in a moment, communicate what I'm thinking or feeling. And so Owen is a little more ready to talk right now. His process of not being too direct has led him to ask questions, you know, to walk up and go, I want to say that was not it. That's not what I'm going to say. How did you think that went? You know, you know, I'm trying to be nice. Well, that's kind of ended up being like kind of looking at it and go, wow, that really works actually, because people usually know what was wrong about it. And sometimes when they don't, they go overboard with it, you know, as musicians, be perfectionists or whatever. So sometimes we walk out into the backstage and somebody's just like, oh my goodness, have I ever played music before? What in the world was that? And we're like, whoa, 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 that wasn't that bad. Like nobody knew that. I mean, we knew you played the wrong chord, but playing the 1/3 instead of the 1 when you're playing acoustic guitar is okay. There's so many things covering that up.
When you're the
you know?
second acoustic guitarist.
Yeah, like yeah, like
On Capo
you're
7.
okay. Like we didn't, and we don't want to be like we don't even hear you. Like like
Yeah, you don't even matter. Who cares?
Seriously, like we have to be careful, but like it really does matter. We do care, and we do, but. We try to engage those conversations a little bit, and some of the question asking has become part of our pattern. Is we ask them, they answer, and we're able to speak into that. So
And we coach our leaders to ask questions too. They've all heard this talk. And every time that they're a bottom line leader in a service that I'm not there, I email them this information. And I say, hey, so-and-so, thanks so much for bottom line leading for a high school service. Here's a couple of reminders of some things that we're looking for. Boom, these are the things I want feedback on: musicality, countenance, and leadership. Here's how some great ways to give feedback. Tell them something great. Ask questions. Don't immediately say that all the things that are bad. If there are a lot of things, pick the biggest thing. So this is, literally this teaching is from an email that I send to our people anytime the bottom line. So, sure.
Take notes, bro.
Can you make a list of all the things you asked me I can email you, because I'm not going to remember. Jordan, what's up?
Yeah, with the process we're doing right now, it has to happen because Owen has to actually go either lead or go watch as the people are doing it, specifically. We're working me out of that a little more, just to be real. I don't get off the stage as much as I'd like to, but I will be, and we've got plans for me doing that. And then Owen has to go because he's real famous, and he has to go play for Brian and Katie Torwald, Chris McClarney. So he's going to be traveling. He's going to be out of town one weekend, and so we've had conversations about how when he leaves, it's not awesome. And so he's been very intentional about putting some people in position and helping them. And like, hey, when you leave, I know you told that guy to do that. He doesn't do it. It stinks. Everybody feels it. So what are we going to do? So he's had to have even more investment. And then this last time when he stepped off the stage, or actually we had to have you step up and lead during 1 week. This right when I got back from sabbatical. And so a great opportunity for him to be on the stage while somebody else is doing some of his roles, and then knowing he's going to be off the stage. And so then I'm going to be gone the weekend after that, actually. I'm going to actually be gone. Our goal is for me to be able to get off the stage and just be a part of the congregation and be able to help assess leadership from that vantage point as well.
Yeah, Jimmy has told us at this point he wants one of the two of us on the front line. So we're not. It's great because there is two of us, so we can do that. We're working on Jimmy. Just kidding. No, we're working on that.
Yeah.
I play acoustic.
Plays acoustic. Yeah, we have to have somebody in the back.
Yeah. Hey, you're winning right now. That's a great question. Question is, if there's a musician, you're less proficient than they are in the instrument, and there's not someone else currently in your church that can help speak to that, what do you do? That's a great question.
I've got a quick answer.
You can answer.
Because I actually started leading bands before I knew how to speak any kind of language of music at all.
Music theology.
Music theology. That's what we call it here around here. Music theologian.
Like, what was that? That was awesome. Music theology.
Music. So I think for me, because it was my job, I felt that pressure of sometimes it's not good, sometimes it's wrong, and I have no language except to say it's not good and it's wrong. And it's really not awesome to say that wasn't good, it was wrong. Make it right. I don't know how. Just do it. Like it makes you feel like such an idiot, and I look like an idiot whether I feel like it or not. So what I actually took drum lessons. I have a really good sense of rhythm for some reason. All four limbs will not do that at the same time. Like drummers, I don't get it. So Zach's in the back there. He does play drums at times, and I think he's great. I can't tell him. I know what it feels like, so to do that. For some reason, they just won't work. So I took drum lessons to try to kind of get a grid for it, and in my mind was thinking the whole time, this is going to help me communicate at times. But what I will do is say this. I don't know what it's like to play your instrument, but I do know that I'm experiencing some problems here. And so I'm just going to be honest with you and say I don't have language for it, but I would like for us to talk about it. So what I just said is I don't have language, and we need to talk. So again, when we don't know how, when people won't clap, I say let's clap our hands. If I know there's something wrong and I don't have language for it, I just say I don't have language, but we need to talk. Can we talk about it? Here's what I'm experiencing. Had a really difficult conversation with a drummer at one point, and it was a way too delayed conversation early on. Did not communicate like I should have, that there were problems that were always happening. This drummer grew up in, he was an incredible jazz drummer, grew up in the Black Gospel Church, and played way too much for our music and way too much and way too much for our room. But he was kind of the king of the drummers at the time, and so and his personality and this way a relationship worked. I didn't communicate that he needed to change some things. So when I came to him and said, basically, I showed him a recording, and I was like, we had to change so much of the way this recording went down because of your drumming that was in the house speakers, going through the microphones. His response was, that was a very shortened version of what I said, and I didn't say it very well, is my point. He was like, if you're asking me to have perfect time, that doesn't exist. Like, people don't have perfect time. And so he obviously missed what I was trying to say. And I talked some more and some more and some more, and we never really got there in that conversation. Part of that was because he's resistant to feedback. The other was I didn't have the language. But that conversation, as I tried to be as gracious as possible, kept moving forward. And in the end, he remained somewhat resistant to feedback. It's just not in his thing. He's not really with us anymore because we get feedback, and we're going to continue to push into that. He responded at times with a humble heart there, and later I continued to grow, and I got some language for what I needed, and I could say it real quick, and we say it to our drummers all the time. We have a certain room, we have a certain experience, and so I'm using drummers because it's the one that I feel is furthest away from my ability. And so what I'm saying there is engage the conversation yourself. But when you do have somebody else who does it well, does it right, or you hear someone with language, then do whatever it takes to get those people together, for sure. So is that helpful to what you're describing?
Yeah, one other thing I was going to say, read this text. One other thing I was going to say is that we are working for us, and we can definitely pass this along to you guys as well, on writing out competencies for each instrument. So things that we're looking at practically, what do you need to be able to do to play here with us? Or what are skills that, even if you're not proficient at this yet, that we want you to be able to do here? And so it's awesome. Again, the thing is we're setting people up with clear expectations of what we want from them. And so it's hard when we're not clear, but it's just like, I don't know, it's just kind of like, be more like this, or I don't know, listen to this album and see, so to be clear of, we want this, we don't want this is how we play, this is how we don't play. And we don't have those yet, but as we get those, we can send them on to you. We'll add that to Adam's requested email list. What's up, Robert? Question is, how do we find and spot potential worship leaders? Part of it is Arden was a crew of probably, I'm trying to think her freshman year. I probably auditioned 4, maybe 5 girls that were freshmen her year, and she's the only one who's still around. And the rest were medium, and some of them moved, and that's why they're not here. But it is something that it's just kind of, you just give people the reps and you see how people respond. And we're honest to say like, hey man, I think this is your thing. Or like, I don't know, I think we maybe need to work on this, or I don't know that this is your best area, or things like that. So it's, for us, I mean, it's, I think part of what you're hitting on is how do you recruit people? So we've done everything. I mean, for us, James Mark mentioned this earlier, in our confessions, we found that most people come through a friend who's also a musician. That's how we got Joe. That's how we got Laura. That's how we got Well, no one else, I guess, that's been in here, or these two didn't. So yeah, a lot of times it's just through people. We've done like the sign-up table after a church service that like Owen's gonna be at the sign-up table if you want to play, and get ready because you're gonna sit through some rough auditions if you do that method. And you'll get some great people out of it as well. But it's usually like 1 to 7 or like 1 to 10 on like awesome to like painful. At least for us. Hopefully, I pray that's not your experience. So honestly, dude, we part of it is that you just you have people play and you're like, yep. We have conversations with people before we put them on stage, hopefully, to say like, hey, I had a college drummer probably 5 years ago who came in and he was like one of those YouTube drummers who like did the covers of all the songs, and had some like big name bands like commenting on his covers like, hey, you're awesome. He cannot play except for the covers is what we learned. And so he could, and he got there, but he auditioned and he could not keep to a click, which I was like, how do you play to a recording but not just to a metronome? I don't know. And so I told him, hey, dude, I don't think you're ready yet. And so what I want you to do, I want you to work on playing with the metronome, and I want you to come back in 2 months. And he did, and he literally played every week in the college service for a year because he did it, and he got there. And so part of it is just saying like, hey, you're not there yet. And if they're gonna take the steps to get there, those are the people you want in your teams, is the ones who are gonna say like, okay, I want to put in the work to get there. I want to put in the effort to get there. So it doesn't exactly answer your question, but
because the feeling like he was talking about is I'm going to walk in and I'm going to sing or play, and in that moment, you're going to tell me whether I'm going to just take the mic and go for it, or I'm going to be the next person. So kind of want to break down that mentality a little bit. Come on in, we'll talk, we'll sing a little bit, we'll play a little bit, and then we'll talk about what that's going to mean. And we don't feel, we refuse to have the pressure to communicate right then, or to that any person auditioning means that they are either in or out of the Sunday Sunday team. We have several services, we have several things going on, but we had to just have the conversation. That's not the conversation we're having. We're having the conversation of where are people going to serve? Where's going to be best to serve? And the other side of that is making the commitment. We will always give them the next step, no matter who they are. So if someone walks in, they say, it's been prophesied over my life 8 times that I'm going to be a worship leader that stands next to Darlene Check and leads the nations.
That has literally happened.
And that's my prophetic word. And then they sing and they are tone deaf. We are committed to give them the next step, not just to say, wow, well, sometimes we miss it and you missed it. And have a good life, or what really maybe is more. This is getting really close to home here. Is, hey, thanks so much. We'll get back to you. Except we won't. We really don't, because you're so far off our grid, and you're full of yourself, or you're just terrible, and we don't know how to say, let it go, like it's not going to be your thing. Maybe be a dentist, or something like that. We don't know what to say, and so we just don't communicate with you. And really, that's how people get hurt, get bitter at the church, and there's a part that we play in that. So what we will say is, hey, I think what you could do is maybe ask your life group leader if maybe you could serve as a worship leader. Because if you haven't been serving in a life group and as a worship leader, and if their only answer to that is, I don't play guitar, and we say, well, then maybe get creative with how you could lead worship. Maybe have somebody else do that. Figure something out. And if they're not willing to put that kind of work into it, then they're really not willing to be developed. And that's a different conversation. But we have offered them the next step of growth. So we always give that next step of growth no matter where they're coming from.
We had a guy come in probably 2.5 years ago who was like, I really want to lead worship. I know I'm called to lead worship. I'm really scared to do it. We came in, he was pretty average. And had like 0 experience. So we had this conversation. Hey, dude, have you led in your life group? No, blah, blah. So we're like, okay, well, what I want you to do is lead in your life group and come back. literally 2 years later, he comes back to me. Hey, I finally just started leading in my life group, and I want to have a conversation about what it can look like. Oh, I forgot you even still went to our church. Kind of like, it's like, I haven't seen you. I didn't know if you still wanted to do this. I knew he still went to our church. It was finally like I have the resolve. I'm willing to do it. And he, if we had tried to put him up there, he would have failed. We would have failed. He didn't have that resolve yet, but he was able to get there 2 years later, and he's led like twice with us, and he's pretty new and needs a lot of coaching. But he has that resolve of like, I'm going to do this. It's worth the feedback. It's worth the growth. And so I think that's part of it, is just saying like, hey, ball's in your court. You need to work on this, and just being clear with people. So yeah, last question, Dan. And the question was, what's the balance? Because music is powerful and music affects people, what's the balance of using music to manipulate people's emotions, pull on people's heartstrings, versus give people an opportunity to meet with God? Is that really what I hear you saying? I do. I don't know you very well. The first thing I would say to you is that check your heart with God. And I have to personally do that, to say, am I just looking for a win so I feel good about it, or like this was awesome, or am I really looking to give people that? To me, if your motives are pure, go for it. You know what I mean? And be wise. Don't be sneaky or tricky or something. Which I don't. From knowing you, I don't think you would do that. But I think, to me, I have to look internally first to say, am I doing this so I can get something out of it, me, Owen, or am I doing this so that people are able to meet with God, and I'm setting people up for that? So to me, God made music, so he knew the power. I mean, you look at the Bible, and you look at when Saul was being tormented by demons. What did he do? He brought someone in to come and play music, and the Spirit of God came and set him free. So it's like, okay, obviously God created this, and he knew that this is a thing, and that's why we love music, and that's why, honestly, I'm like, I connect to that, and I listen to melody, and I listen to that more than I listen to lyrics often in a song, because I feel it here, and you get it in your gut. And so I think to me the biggest thing is, yes, it does that, but it's where your heart with God am I trying to like be like, oh, I'll really get him if I put this song in, or is it really something of like, my desire is to see people meet with him? And dude, you're an incredible musician too. So there is going to be a place of knowing when to use that, and knowing when to hold that back, so that people are not just staring at like your amazing fingers, and so I do think that it's going to be a balance that you're going to have to walk with God to a degree of, where is my heart right before the Lord? Because that's what God's looking at. In 1 Samuel, it says, when Samuel's trying to select the next king, they're like, oh, they're looking at all of these amazing people, and God says to Samuel, man sees the outward appearance, but I see the heart. And I think that's the thing that God is like, he knows you. He knows if you're trying to get something out of that, or if you're just saying, I want to give them a genuine experience. And to me, the great thing about following Jesus is that I can say, whoo, God, I repent because I'm looking for affirmation in this moment from people, or I repent because of that. And it's just an immediate turning, and we're done, and we're good to go, and I can walk on in purity with my heart with God. And so I think that is, and you can speak to that as well, James Mark. I also need to leave, but I think that's part of my thought is, it is a struggle, especially for us as musicians, because we really connect with it, and we're like, we know this is going to be awesome, and they're like going to love this moment. But when we have the musicality at the expense of people experiencing God, or when I'm so wrapped up in like, this is the best, we have to do this with our band sometimes, where it's like, we could do this really awesome instrumental thing, but I know deep down inside we're gonna lose people if we do that. It's a sick thing that like our band as musicians is like, this is so rad, but I know they're not going to come with me if we do this. And it's one of those things I have to put my leader hat on and take my musician hat off. And it's death sometimes to say like, oh, this would be so rad if we got to do this. But I know this isn't going to lead people into an encounter with God, which just like you're saying, that's our heart. That's our goal, is that people meet with God. And so I think just being able to strike that balance, but always landing on the side of, are people going to meet with God versus am I going to, is this musical moment going to be rad? So I'm